Greetings, loved ones. Today we're going to talk about how you can recognize the signs of child abuse and child neglect. These are really important messages, so please help us get them out. Subscribe to our channel, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single episode. And also please share these messages with others because you could save a life. So let's talk about recognizing signs of abuse and neglect in children. We need to be working to prevent a child from experiencing abuse or neglect, and it is really important to recognize high-risk situations and the signs and symptoms of abuse. If you do suspect a child is being harmed, reporting your suspicions will protect the child and get help for the family. Any concerned person, I'm going to repeat that, any concerned person can report suspicions of child abuse and neglect. Reporting your concerns is not making an accusation. Rather, it is a request for an investigation and assessment to determine if help is needed. Some people, typically certain types of professionals such as teachers or doctors, are required by state law to make a report of child abuse under specific circumstances, and these are called mandated reporters. Some states require all adults to report suspicions of child abuse or neglect. For information about where and how to file a report, contact your local Child Protective Services or police department. Some children might directly disclose that they have experienced abuse or neglect. But let's look at the signs when the child has not told you they're being abused. These following signs might signal the presence of child abuse and neglect. So signs you find in a child: show sudden changes in behavior or school performance. The child has not received help for physical or medical problems brought to the parent's attention. The child has learning problems or difficulty concentrating that cannot be attributed to specific physical or psychological causes. The child is always watchful, as though preparing for something bad to happen. The child lacks adult supervision. The child is overly compliant, passive, or withdrawn. The child comes to school or other activities early, stays late, and does not want to go home. The child is reluctant to be around a specific person, or the child discloses maltreatment. So now let's talk about signs of abuse or neglect that you can see in a parent. The parent would deny the existence of or blames the child for the child's problems in school or at the home. The parent will ask teachers or other caregivers to use harsh physical discipline if the child misbehaves. Or the parent sees the child as entirely bad, worthless, or burdensome. The parent may demand a level of physical or academic performance the child cannot achieve. Or the parent looks primarily to the child for care, attention, and satisfaction of the parent's emotional needs. Another thing on the parent is that the parent shows little concern for the child. So now let's talk about signs that you can recognize for child abuse, child neglect when the parent and the child are together. You may notice that the parent and the child rarely touch or look at each other. The parent and the child consider their relationship entirely negative. Or the parent and the child state that they do not like each other. These lists may not be all the signs of abuse or neglect, but it is important to pay attention to other behaviors that may seem unusual or concerning. So let's talk about signs of physical abuse. You can consider the possibility of physical abuse when the child has unexplained burns, bites, bruises, broken bones, or black eyes. When the child has fading bruises or other marks noticeable after an absence from school. You can know that it's a sign of child abuse, physical abuse, when the child seems frightened of the parent and protests or cries when it is time to go home. Another thing a child might do is shrink at the approach of adults. And another sign of physical abuse is reports of injury by a parent or another adult caregiver. And another thing is when the adult abuses animals or pets, or the child abuses animals or pets. You can consider the possibility of physical abuse when the parent or other adult caregiver, for example, the parent offers conflicting, unconvincing, or no explanation for the child's injury, or provides an explanation that is not consistent with the injury. The parent describes the child as evil or in some other negative way. The child uses harsh physical discipline with the child. The parent has a history of child abuse as a child, and the parent has a history of abusing animals or pets. So let's talk about neglect and signs that you could see that consider the possibility of neglect when the child is frequently absent from school, when the child is begging or stealing food or money, when the child lacks needed medical or dental care, immunizations, or glasses, when the child is consistently dirty and has severe body odor. Neglect is when the child lacks sufficient clothing for the weather, abuses alcohol or other drugs, and when the child states that there is no one at home to provide care. You can consider the possibility of neglect when the parent or other adult caregiver appears to be indifferent to the child, or the parent seems apathetic or depressed. The parent behaves irrationally or in a bizarre manner, or the parent is abusing alcohol or other drugs. So let's talk about sexual abuse. Signs of sexual abuse that you can see in the child. The child has difficulty walking or sitting. The child suddenly refuses to change for gym or to participate in physical activities. The child is reporting nightmares or bedwetting, or the child experiences a sudden change in appetite. The child demonstrates bizarre, sophisticated, or unusual sexual knowledge or behavior. Or the child becomes pregnant or contracts a venereal disease, particularly if under the age of 14. If the child runs away, if the child reports sexual abuse by a parent or another adult caregiver or adult, if the child attaches very quickly to strangers or new adults in their environment. These are all signs of sexual abuse in the children. So let's consider the possibility of sexual abuse when the parent or the other adult caregiver is unduly protective of the child or severely limits the child's contact with other children, especially of the opposite sex. The parent is secretive and isolated, or the parent is jealous or controlling with family members. These are very serious things. If you see these things in adults or children, it's something you need to report and investigate. Right now, let's talk about signs of emotional abuse. So you can consider the possibility of emotional abuse when the child shows extremes in behavior, such as overly compliant or overly demanding behavior, extreme passivity, or extreme aggression. When the child is either inappropriately adult, like parenting other children, for example, or inappropriately infantile, frequently rocking or head banging, sucking their thumb. When the child is delayed in physical or emotional development, if the child has attempted suicide, and if the child reports a lack of attachment to the parent. You can consider the possibility of emotional abuse when the parent or other adult caregiver constantly blames, belittles, or berates the child, and when the parent is unconcerned about the child and refuses to consider offers of help for the child's problems, or when the parent overly rejects the child. According to the CDC, over half of all children in the world, 1 billion children worldwide, ages 2 to 17, experience violence every year. The question is not if you will encounter a victim of violence. The question before God is, what will you do when you encounter them? You could be the person who saves a life. You are called, we are all called to be champions for justice. And those who suffer violence need to know that those who love them and those who don't even know them will step out and reach out to them to give them the help they need before it's too late. This is important information. Please help us get these messages out. Subscribe to our channel, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single episode, and share these messages with others. If you are a victim of violence, woman abused by her partner, an elderly person abused, a child abused, anyone. If you are a victim of violence, listen to me. You have been lied to for much too long. I want you to know the truth. And the truth is you are valued, you are loved, you're intelligent, and yes, actually you are worthy. God does not want you to suffer violence. He wants you to live free from violence in peace and tranquility. You are not trapped. There is a way out. It is not your fault, the violence you are suffering. And abuse is not love. If someone says they love you and then abuses you, they're lying to you. And most of all, I want you to know you are not alone. So if you're a victim of violence, reach out to someone today. If you're in a dangerous situation, call 911. If you know of a child suffering violence, tell the authorities. In our next episode, we're going to talk about the impact of childhood trauma. Until then, God bless you.